Welcome to the Relationship Toolbox, a show about the skills we need to build healthy relationships with others. Have you ever had the experience of sharing something you're very excited about, maybe surprised about yourself, and having the person you're sharing this with just kill all your enthusiasm for this? The topic of today's show covers that particular phenomena when we do share a positive thing and that particular thing happens. So there is a skill that's involved in how we respond to someone sharing positive things, not only negative, but also the positive. So Marsha, you've been doing some research on this particular communication challenge. So what are the skills that we need to be sort of fine-tuned and aware of?
I think it comes down to awareness, because this was actually new learning for me, just to highlight the whole positive aspect, because I think that there's a bias about being careful about how to handle people when you're in conflict, or when you have conflicting interests, or when there's something dark or sorrowful, and we kind of get our headset on and say, okay, I need to be careful with this person, they need a certain thing. But I think we're kind of casual. At least I know that I am. I'm not as mindful of reacting in a way that is helpful to the other person when they're coming with great news. And so I delved a little bit into that. And I think that we measure ourselves and sometimes our partners in how we're going to be. Are you going to show up for me when things are hard? When I have suffered a loss or a disappointment or a hardship or some kind of a problem or an illness, are you going to be there for me? And we judge our partner in that. But we don't say necessarily, are you going to be there to celebrate with me? It's kind of unspoken.
We feel the need for it. Yes.
And it's important. It's really important to know how to amplify and to be with people in their joy and in their victory and in their accomplishments. And we can do the relationship a disservice if we're not being purposeful and mindful in our reactions. So.
Didn't you share with me earlier too something about the actual harmful effects that some of the research that you went into has when we don't get that shared enthusiasm with it? Can you share a little bit of that?
You would think that it would be tipped again. You didn't show up for me when I was at my lowest point. But more damage evidently is done when you are discouraging or disappointed or just totally disengaged when somebody has chosen to share this with you. You are the person that they want to come to with this information, and you let them down. They're often more hurt or disappointed or confused or feel diminished or unimportant in those moments.
I think it would create a tendency to avoid in the future. You know, that, oh, the last time I shared something like this, I know what I got, so I guess I won't share it with this person.
I'm going to find somebody who's going to respond to me in a way that I'm looking for, positively and affirming, and to amplify my experience. So, unbeknownst to the person who's being casual or disengaged, not understanding that they need to show up just as earnestly in good times, might not understand that they're no longer the person that you go to with that good news, because you can't trust them to take care of you. You need to take care of that person just as much in the positive experience as not.
And you say to sort of amplify and help them. I like the way you put it, to experience the thing all over again.
Exactly.
When you're in the telling of it.
There's a psychologist named Shelley Gable who has created a framework. And the framework is there are two dimensions that measure your response to good information or good news. And one is a dimension, I think we might even have a slide on this. It's the dimension of whether you have been positive or negative, whether you have added to the experience, added value to the conversation, or whether you've like subtracted some value and good feeling. And they call that constructive or deconstructive. So if you have been affirming, you've amplified, you've magnified that experience, you've added, you've constructed value. And if you've like picked apart, or you've poked holes in it, or you found fault with it, or maybe you didn't even linger on it for very long, then you have thought to been destructive.
Sure. And we're going to demonstrate that
We're
a little
going to
bit
give some
later
examples
to our audience. Yeah.
Now, of course, that's one measurement, and then we overlay another, and that is how active were you in being present with the person? Were you fully focused on them? Did you set aside whatever else you were doing? Did you give them your full attention? Did you put down the phone? Did you stop the email? Did you mute the TV? Did you give them eye contact? Did you stop, whatever you're doing, and give them your full attention? Were you curious?
And make that connection.
Or were you kind of like, oh, and multitasking, or maybe not looking up, or in the other room, or whatever, and you were quasi-engaged, but you didn't turn to them and make it their moment. And that dimension is considered either passive, when you aren't giving them your full attention, or active if you have turned to them. So where these two dimensions intersect, you end up with 4 possible quadrants. I think we have another slide for that as well, where you can be a combination of constructive, destructive, or passive and active, where they intersect. So you have a couple of categories that we can characterize these things as active constructive, which is what we want to aim for, which is the most worthy of building the relationship and building the trust.
It builds the bond and the trust between.
On both axes. You are fully present, and you are building value in this experience for them.
So the person who's sharing is left with a feeling of, I'm so glad I shared this with you.
This was a good experience for me, and I would want to replicate it. My joy, I could re-experience what I felt initially when it happened to me in the telling of this person. And I can trust you, and I can expect you to give that back to me. And to be with me in my excitement, or my good news, or my joy.
We can share this together now.
Yeah, but and that's the optimal place to be. Now, for whatever reason, either not being aware, or apathy, or sickness, or you've got a deadline, or there are reasons that we don't bring our best self, and we're not judging to say, that's bad, because I have seen myself on both ends. I know that I've been disappointed in how a person has responded to my positive information. And now that I've delved into this and understood the different ways that you can respond, I know that I have not shown up as that active, constructive, responding person.
And that first step is that awareness, isn't it?
And once you know better, you can do better. At least when you have the capacity. You're not always going to have the capacity, or the patience, or the presence, but we want to shoot for that ideal. And we often, I think, in all of our exchanges, whether it's in conflict or in good news, we're prone to think that the conversation didn't go well because of that other person. They're impossible, or they. And I'm more and more aware of how people co-create a conversation. And that we have a responsibility, and we have influence on how a conversation will evolve.
Definitely, yeah.
And in this case, it's good news. And you think that has enough buoyancy and enough energy to sustain itself all on its own, because it's good news.
Right.
But we can really deflate the process.
And I wonder, I don't know if they showed this up in the research at all, how many people, without that awareness, walk away from a conversation like that feeling like, oh, that went fine.
Yeah.
And
like,
not realizing how they dampened the
Yeah.
whole experience for a person.
How they dampened it, how they detracted from it, how they may have even robbed the person of some of the initial euphoria. So some of the other characteristics could be that you could be, you have active constructive, you have passive constructive, you have active destructive and passive destructive. And we have a slide that has some just kind of icons to kind of show you what that would be. If you are being actively constructive, you are magnifying the excitement of that person. You are sitting with them, you are re-experiencing it, you're asking them, you're curious, like, oh, tell me how it happened. Tell me, how did you find out? Was it you are elevating it and even maybe adding to the joy of the good news.
And thus the magnifying glass.
The magnifying glass. And you don't just take it as at face value, you're curious and you ask questions. Of course, all of this has to be authentic.
Sure.
Because people do pick up on your
sarcasm or anything like that, and this would be deadly.
Fake. So hopefully you care about this person enough to afford the time and the enthusiasm for them.
I like the image too of the magnifying glass, and that it brings out more detail, which is part of that curiosity that what you saw at first was just the beginning of it. And then when you put the magnifying glass on, more particles come out of this.
Right.
More pieces of information.
More details, and you can enlarge it. You're expanding on it. So then, but if you're not quite attentive, and if you're not quite there, you could be like, I could be on my phone and you came in and I didn't put this down and I'm finishing a text or something, and I could say, oh my gosh, that's great, Tom, you must be so happy.
Right.
I've said the right things, but I haven't given you my whole personhood.
Right. You didn't have any investment in it with it.
And it's kind of like oh, great. That's it, though. So I'm constructing. I'm saying, good job, fantastic. That's great news. But then I'm not amplifying it. I'm not magnifying it.
Right.
And in fact, I'm kind of not even acknowledging you fully.
Right.
And I haven't asked you any questions.
And thus the extinguisher then.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I've extinguished your excitement by not being curious, by not giving you eye contact, by not asking you.
Right. I think everybody can relate to that image of when there's a flame and you put the extinguisher to it, there's a whoosh, that's it.
Oh, I guess we're done. And you can have expectations of more. So that's a possibility. So then if we're moving down into the other quadrant where it's passive destructive, it could be that you've just given me good news and I go, oh, that reminds me of something I did very similarly. And then you've shifted it. I've kind of taken the glow away from you and it's about me or about somebody else. And so it's also deflating.
That's a very common phenomenon in conversation too. Which has a more even devastating effect perhaps in this situation, but just in talking with people, it triggers something that they want to think about themselves again, and off they go, and the next thing you're standing there like an empty basket, saying, wait a minute. What happened?
I thought this was about me, and it turned out to be about you. I think that is an innocent attempt that many people make at trying to show a connection, but it is not, it doesn't build.
That's a good point. Sort of, well, I felt that too, thinking I'm sharing with you, but
See,
I'm actually robbing
mean.
you of your enjoyment.
I'm taking your moment from you by bringing it back. And then there's finally just like poking holes in it. Like, oh, well, did you ever think about that? Now, the real problem starts. So, and you could be actively destroying and
it's very demeaning,
devaluating. So let's move from our image to some examples and really get into away from theory to some
what
practical.
It sounds like,
what
it looks
might
like.
sound like, because we might recognize ourselves in this. I know I had some uncomfortable moments realizing that I have maybe not been as supportive and as constructive and as present and active as it could have been.
Very common, it seems like, for this particular situation, isn't it? Even more so
Yeah.
than others. Where do we ever, except on a show like this, where do we ever learn about these needs that we have and how we tend to not understand them? I mean, where does that come from?
And how did I get to be this old without thinking
knowing
about it?
that, yes.
I think on an intuitive level, you can feel like, well, the chemistry just wasn't there, but
not
I didn't
necessarily
know
why.
how to, not know why and not know how to remedy it. So here's a way to remedy it. So you have an example in mind?
Yeah, I'm thinking of something that happens, I think, fairly common for people. They buy a lottery ticket. It doesn't have to be the lottery, but they buy a lottery ticket. And let's take that as an example that I have, you're a friend of mine, and I just found out that my lottery ticket came in, and I've won $1,000.
Okay, $1,000.
I can't believe this. I've never won anything like this before.
Okay, so give it to me. Tell me.
Okay, it's Marsha. I can't believe it. I just learned that the numbers on my lottery ticket, that I bought
You buy
about a
every
week
week,
ago.
right?
I know, yeah. They came in. I'm getting $1,000.
$1,000. Well, first
that
of all,
great?
that's not that much in lottery terms because you're going to pay most of it in taxes, and everybody's going to want something from you now.
Well,
You're going to get
I
on some
guess.
list. Kiss that goodbye. If it were bigger, then you could be excited about it. But $1,000
But
bucks.
still, $1,000.
Well, good for you. Yeah, not bad. But I'd go for
Wow.
the big one. Big one. 1,000 isn't. Think about it. You could spend that in no time.
So talk about putting a damper on someone. That just took the enthusiasm and boom, that was gone.
It's like,
because
wow, you're
now I
right.
almost have to defend my enjoyment of this. It makes me sound as if I don't have enough sense to realize that.
That's not a lot of money, or you don't know how the lottery works. You just certainly don't feel as excited about it.
Exactly. It could have
As
been
you did.
$100, but the point is, I
were
won
like-
something.
Yeah, that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And this person is just like poked holes in it. And this could be a partner relationship. This could be like a parent-child, a neighbor, a coworker. This framework can work in all of these situations.
Yes. And to think, putting myself in that position of what it would be like. Here I come in excited, I want to share this, and I get that boom, that just extinguishes the flame. But also there's an after effect of that, that I walk away, not with my excitement anymore, I walk away with that miserable feeling of, well, that wasn't so pleasant to go through.
Pleasant. No, I'm not going to tell that person. Or I'm a loser. I didn't really. You start believing the things about
that
yourself.
the criticism
it's
that that person was
you
saying.
didn't really win much.
Yeah. Well, maybe I
That
shouldn't
doesn't
be
count.
that excited about
Yeah,
this. Maybe it
silly.
isn't. So yeah, it does a devastating job on a person's feelings and their perceptions.
So
it can.
that's actively deconstructive, because I was giving you my full attention and I was working hard at poking holes in what you were telling me about.
Maybe even thinking that you were justified in doing it. That why don't you think about these things?
Yeah.
Instead of getting so excited. Why you got to think of the bigger picture.
Yeah. Sometimes the closer we are to people, the more we feel entitled to do this too, because we have that familiarity and we could point out the dark side of something.
Almost as if we're saving them from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So another way, why don't you give it to me again?
Okay, Marsha, I just won this lottery ticket. I can't believe it. I was just notified. $1,000 I've got.
Hi, that's great, Tom. You're the second person this week who told me that they've won something. I know this guy over, he's a farmer on the old post road. And yeah, he was like doing cartwheels. Everybody's doing it these days, I guess.
Oh.
well,
Did he win $1,000 too?
I think he won a lot more than that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
see.
Yeah. So,
Again, think if I ever want to share this with you again.
yeah. It reminded me of another story that was similar, and
Yes.
we went off, and so you didn't even get much time with your information.
Right. And
I
it was
shifted.
forgetting the fact that the enjoyment comes from sharing that, not from hearing about someone else
Somebody
who
else
also has won,
in the same
but
business.
you enjoying my good luck
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
winning. So that's gone. It just
Yeah. That's
puffed
gone.
right out.
All right, try another one.
Okay, so we'll go to passive
Just
constructive.
tell me the
Okay.
news again.
Marsha, I just can't believe it. I just got the news that I won $1,000. Remember that lottery ticket? That I get them every week. They
Yeah.
never come in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I've got $1,000.
Huh.
I'm trying to think, how am I going to spend this? What am I going to do? I can't get over this.
Where'd you buy it again? I forget.
Oh, it was at, I think, the Terrell Street place.
Huh, pretty lucky spot. Yeah, that's great, Tom. I'm happy for you.
Huh. You don't seem so.
So I said all the right words. I asked you a question. Where'd you buy it?
Yeah,
And I said I was happy for you.
right.
So how'd you feel?
Totally discounted.
Yeah.
As if there was no way that you were entering in that, what do you call it, circle of enthusiasm that I had. You were not entering into that whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, well, let's try and give you what you thought you needed all
Okay.
along. Let's try that. Let's give you the active, constructive response
Okay, so this is what we would hope that people would do
on their best days.
on their best days. Yes. Marsha, I can't believe this. You know how I buy those tickets at the lottery tickets? And
Yeah.
I usually toss them after a while because I know I don't win. I never win anything. I won.
Oh my gosh.
I won $1,000. I won.
$1,000. Wow. What kind of a ticket was it?
I forget the particular name of
like
the
a
thing.
scratch-off
I
ticket?
it was just like a scratch-off
So you
one.
didn't have to come up with any numbers or anything.
No, they notified me.
Oh my gosh.
I won
Oh, cool. Where'd you buy it?
at the Terrell Street place.
Oh, wow. That's a lucky
Yeah,
spot.
it
What do you
was.
think you're going to do with it?
I don't know. I mean, it's just right now. I just want to sort of revel in knowing that I won
Yeah.
with it, and to think that I've got that money, that extra money.
You should do something fun with it. You shouldn't use it on like a repair on the house. Or
That would be kind of neat,
you
yeah,
should
because
do
it is
something-
special.
It is. You're always going to have to pay for the regular stuff.
Yeah.
You should do something that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
That's a good idea.
Totally like self-indulgent.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Something because I was thinking a little bit guilty. Maybe I should pay some of the bills.
Well,
But you're right. This is something special. I may never win again.
Well, you got to play to win, they
That's
say.
right.
It's none of my business. You do whatever you want to do with it. I'm so happy for you.
Well,
That's
thank you.
great. But I think you should do something fun.
Yeah,
Don't
I
do
think
something
I think you got a
practical,
good point there.
You know? Take care. That's great. So,
Totally different experience.
yeah.
So I'm not only in the moment with you, re-experiencing the excitement and the joy of this, but I'm walking away from being with you still on cloud 9. Because you have just in the picture,
Magnified it,
you've
amplified it,
magnified it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've made it now 2 people who are excited with it. So what a difference.
There's a synergy with the two of us. And you've got to re-experience it. So, that joy, whatever it is, emotional or spiritual or chemical that you feel when you have happiness, you get to re-experience it. And in the telling. And I've given you a space where we can do it together.
Right, and it presents a bond in the relationship because I will respect you for doing that. And
seek me out maybe
and seek
next
you
time
out.
it happens.
Or I might even say, hey, Marsha, that was a great idea. Let's go out to dinner or something.
well, maybe.
With it.
Yeah.
Because, that was a good idea. Let's do something special.
When, we talk about people not always remembering the things that we say to them, but we have these feelings. I think it was Maya Angelou who said we remember how we felt
Yes.
when we were with them.
We may forget the words and the circumstance, but
we
boy, we
remember
remember how we
feel.
felt.
And I think that I know that I want to be more careful about those good times because my personal bias has been that I don't need to be as careful and because good news is good news and it has a life of its own and it should be in some ways enough. And I don't think I've deliberately withheld all of this. I just didn't realize how important it was to create that bond
Right.
and to reinforce that trust and that joy. Because after all, this is what sustains us through those dark periods. And we want to amplify this. We want to re-experience it as much as possible.
Another thing that occurs to me, in this, I don't know if you came across this in your research on it, but having different personalities, we respond to good news in different ways. Some of us can get very expressive and very jubilant about it. Others can kind of say, hey, I won the lottery, isn't that great, with it. So when someone shares with me something that's very excitable for them, they are really into it, I put that within my own personality style, and it may not be the way I would express it, even though I'm really enthusiastic for, or I'm delighted that they have won. So part of that is perhaps matching as well as we can the enthusiasm that we're hearing coming, even if it isn't quite our style.
Right. It goes back to the platinum rule, in that I think we probably grew up with the golden rule, and you do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Right.
But the platinum rule is you do to them what you understand they want. And so
it's a real gift.
It is a gift, and it goes back to being empathetic, and this is an exercise in attuning and aligning to the other person. And my response might be different for you than it would be for another person. But think of the opportunities that may have been missed or mishandled between a parent and child. Or comes home, I won the winning goal, or I hit the, or look at my picture, or trying to talk about some victory, and it's been a miserable day, and you just don't have the patience or the time or the demeanor at that moment.
Or you go into your parenting world and say, oh, I'm glad to hear that.
That's great.
Did you do your homework today?
Yeah. Get a magnet, put it on the refrigerator, and get your dirty clothes off and start your homework, or help me. Or can you set the table? And you've missed that moment where you could amplify it, you could magnify it.
It's not recognizing what it actually does to the relationship itself. And you could probably suffer a couple of these and still make it through the relationship. But if it's consistent in it happening, I think the relationship would begin to deteriorate. And the other thing that happens is when we do have a tough time with someone we're relating to, when we've had these experiences of being able to share something like that and they've worked out very well, it carries us through some of the tougher times.
Because we can relive that moment. So, unlike some of the other shows, and we've been talking about conflict and darkness and misunderstandings, we hope that we've shared some information about what you might do differently in the future to respond to positive disclosures and good news and joy. I know that I'm going to try to make active, constructive response a habit. Join us next time for the Relationship Toolbox.